Welcome to Product Talks with F1. I'm Santosh Shukla, and with me here is Head Products at SignEasy. So, welcome Apoorva for your day. Coming in the early morning for us today.
Thank you for having me.
Cool, thank you. So, Apoorva, tell me a little bit about your journey with SignEasy, a great product featured at Apple and Google. So, how has this journey been? You've probably been there. You were one of the early employees. So, could you walk us through that journey? How did it go?
Yeah, absolutely. I think SignEasy has been nothing short of a dream. I had just graduated from college. I went to Singapore for my master's. I worked on my own thing for a little while in Singapore. Did that for about 8 months. That didn't go anywhere, that product. So I was at a stage where I didn't really know how the industry works, but I knew that I wanted to build products. I wanted to, join a startup, join a small company. Like corporates never really excited me as much.
Sure.
So I moved to Bangalore. My sister lived here, and I was like, well, let's see what's happening here. I've heard this is the next Silicon Valley of the world. Came across SignEasy. Interesting product. I honestly had no idea how small they were before I interviewed.
Okay.
Right. So I looked at the product, looked amazing. I was like, okay, this is a startup, really cool. Let's do this. Applied, joined the company. A few weeks later, realized I was the 8th employee coming in. Which was amazing to me, right? Like, including the CEO. I think there were like about 7-8 people in the team, and this little team was like pre-installed on Apple stores, featured by Apple, Google, all of these things happening for the little team. So
Amazing.
Right? And we've been bootstrapped, not a penny of external funding. We have been profitable for many years, which was also amazing to me, right? Because you don't hear of that a lot.
Yes, that you don't hear of that a lot because especially global products installed in North America and a lot of users across globe, I believe, right? So that's a very big thing for such a small team to accomplish.
Yeah, so the US is like our biggest market. 60% of our customers are based out of that. So just the fact that such a small team was doing that was very exciting to me. I joined as an Android developer.
Yeah.
Did that for about a couple of years, almost 2 years. Moved into product management when the opportunity sort of arose in the organization. Did that, have been doing that for over 3 years now. Now I head products.
Could you please? So yes, I think going from 8-member team and being an Android developer, tell me a little more about that transition point. That what was the point wherein your organization knew that they needed somebody to be heading the product apart from the CEO, and how was this opportunity presented to you? Because that might help a lot of people who aspire to be in product management.
Right. So yeah, I've heard this a lot because product management is something that people do want to switch to a lot. It's something that's not very well defined. There's no like school of product management essentially that you can go to and get a degree in product management, right? So I think one of the main things that you should definitely do if you are interested in product management is let your manager or let whoever you can in your organization know. In my experience, the easiest way, and that's what I did as well, was to get into product management was, sort of work within the organization, because you don't have to build trust. You don't have to, because that's already there.
Yeah.
You don't have to sort of convince anybody that you will be able to do this, right? So that's what sort of happened to me. We did have a product manager in the team, and he was like a really good friend of mine. He became a mentor also. Right?
Okay.
So when I was an Android developer, he was my product manager. We had a really good relationship. He moved out of SignEasy.
Okay.
And I had made sure that I had sort of told our CEO, told the management that, hey, this is, product management is something that does interest me. I don't know if I want to become a product manager. I don't know if I'll be good at it, but this is a very interesting field for me. So when the opportunity arose, they, asked me, do you want to try it out? Which also doesn't happen in a lot of organizations.
Yes.
So that is also a little rare, I would say, that, they were like, okay, they recognized it and they're like, okay, let's give this person a chance.
Wonderful.
Well, that's what happened. Tried it out, loved it, and worked out.
Wonderful. Were you also already doing certain parts of product management while you were leading your Android product?
I wouldn't say formally.
Okay.
But I think the culture of the company also matters a lot there.
Yes.
At SignEasy, we are very, ownership driven. So if you think that you can drive something, and if you can show us that you can drive something, go for it. Like, you don't need the title, you don't need permissions, you don't need a sign off. You just let whoever you need to know. We're a very tight-knit team, like 35 people, and just go for it. And that still exists, I guess, in the company, and that's what I did. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, that reminds me of my journey. I was also in product management. So I
Okay.
was in quality engineering, leading the team, and then probably doing a couple of things already which a product manager was supposed to do. Majorly like uh, acting product owner right here in India, because the engineering team was in India, director product management was in the US,
Right.
and I represented our product in various forums. So I was already doing a couple of things, and then when the need arose, probably they asked me, "Will you want to do it?"
Yeah.
So it was the other way around. So I did not ever think of becoming a product manager, but then yes, the opportunity came and I grabbed it.
Absolutely.
So I feel that is how it typically happens. Very few companies probably get freshers and have an APM program, which worked really well for Yahoo
Right.
and Google as well. So, but then other than that, people grow in the organization and figure out that they're really good at multidisciplinary skills,
Right.
which is probably very important. So I'd want to understand, maybe you can talk a little bit more about, apart from technical skills which you had, what are the other skills which you think have helped you get into this role, and what is it needed in product management, right? Because
Yeah.
there are a lot of skills which are needed.
Right. So I would say as a number one thing, of course, like you said, as you grow up the ladder or as you become more and more deeply involved in the product and you start taking on more responsibilities, I guess the gambit of things that you should be focusing on sort of increases a little more.
Yeah.
With every stage of product management, right? And APM or an associate product manager would probably have to think of lesser things versus maybe a head of product would have to think about a little more things, right? But if you think about somebody who wants to break into product or who's coming from a different background, the number one thing I would say is, of course, be great at development, be great at whatever you're doing, design, whatever it is, but customer empathy and actually understanding what you're doing, how does that sort of fit into the entire journey,
Yes.
right? Into the entire experience of the user. As a developer, I remember, I guess that worked in my favor. I remember that I used to be very, okay, I'm building this feature, I got the spec, but why? Like, what are we trying to solve? Like, what is the user trying to do? Right? And I had a great, like I said, great product manager that I could work with and understand these things, right? And he really gave me the insight into what is the problem you're trying to solve, what is the business idea, what is the customer idea, where is this coming from, right? So if you understand that background, and which is very important,
Yeah.
that actually helps you execute your job really well as well, as a designer, as a developer, as whatever you're doing. If you understand the background as to why you're doing it, that gives you a lot of motivation. Right? So I would say that's probably the number one key in terms of understand why you're doing something for the customer, for the business. It needs to make sense.
Wonderful. That brings me to one of the other questions. Since a product that you are working on, SignEasy kind of a product, which has like a variety of users, right? There can be SMBs in various domains, and maybe their days look different than each other. So how does that pan out, right? Because somebody could be a small house renting agent, right, versus a law firm or a contract agent, etc. So we'd want to understand that how would you empathize with so many sets of users?
Right. So practically speaking, definitely very hard. One of the things or one of the techniques, one of the frameworks people use is that of user personas. And that has worked out really well for us. So I was involved in the last 2 years or so. I worked very closely with even a customer success manager to sort of define. We have a set of about 6 user personas that we have now after speaking to like countless customers.
Sure.
So I placed myself in the US for a while, cold calling customers, like setting up interviews, and I just spoke to customers. That's all I did. Morning to evening for weeks.
I think that's an important lesson for everyone, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to be on the call. Many people say that while you're starting a product, even if you're CEO or heading the product, you should be serving in the customer success department or the support department, making those
Yeah.
calls, understanding exactly what it takes.
Exactly. So interestingly, with that thought, when a new employee sort of joins SignEasy in any capacity, in the first 2 weeks, one of our onboarding, one of the things that you should be doing is like 2 days support tickets.
Wonderful. I think that's a great
So that is
way.
part of our process in build. So you have to spend time right off the bat. You don't have to wait just to understand, like, because that puts you directly right in the middle of the users and in the
Yes.
middle of the product, and you know exactly what's happening, right? And when I did that exercise of just speaking to customers, it's hard because especially building a product in India for the Western market,
Yes.
it's hard for a number of reasons, right? It could be it's first of all hard, like the time zone is a big
Yes.
challenge,
Yeah.
obviously. Communication also, right? A
Right.
lot of times customers, as soon as they hear, "Hey, I'm calling from India," the accent, honestly, practically,
Correct.
that's
Yes.
that that's a problem.
Do you think that's changing? Because I remember that was a problem long back. Talking about running a global product from India, I think there have been some success stories, and I attribute that a lot to, let's say, companies like SignEasy, who are leading in the market and being able to do that. It doesn't look like a product which was built for a specific market. It's a global product, and other companies, let's say like Zoho or a Freshworks and InMobi, they've been able to do that, right? Building from India for the global world. Tell us a little bit more about it. As you mentioned, the challenges, one of them being the time zone difference. But apart from that, tell me a little bit more about when you said customers get a little off, or why is that? So, is that changing a little bit, or do you see that very often that when the customers know that it's an Indian product, would they not buy it or resist? What is the?
I think it depends a lot on the kind of customers that you're going after, right?
Sure.
For instance, if you're serving like enterprises or corporates, it might not matter as much, right?
Yeah.
Because they understand, they know how the world works, they know that, of course, there could be an Indian company reaching out to me. That doesn't reflect on the quality of the product or anything of that sort, right?
Sure.
When you're dealing with SMBs, especially in the US, right, which, we have customers who are like deep in the Midwest in the US, right, who
Yes.
probably never spoken to anybody outside their town.
Outside their town,
Right.
yeah.
So of course there are challenges. They're practical challenges, but it is definitely getting better. It's not like people, they don't want to talk to and they don't want to deal with an Indian product. We wouldn't be here if that was the case.
Certainly. It's just that it's new to them, so it's like
new
a
to them.
change. Yeah.
So that all the more puts the onus on us to understand
Yes.
our customer even more, right?
Correct.
For me, I can't deal with an American customer the same way I would probably deal with an Indian customer.
Okay. Yes.
And when I say deal, I mean like the way I think about how they use the product, the way I think about
Sure.
how interaction, the kind of words they use.
Correct.
A lot of times we've learned the hard way is that the way Americans phrase, things, they put sentences, the way they describe things is very different from how we do it in
Totally,
India, right?
yeah.
And just understanding that first and being able to tweak that, that's what you need to build a global product.
Wow.
That's why it's important, I think, also to have probably what we do is our customer success team is completely based out of the US, because the customer facing team, they are sort of the interface translating between, what we need, business, product development versus what the customer needs, and they're sort of the interface.
Wonderful. But do you have these cultural sensitivity lessons from this customer success team, which is facing the customers, to Indian team? Because now they act as a bridge and they understand Indian context, they understand the local context, and then are they able to transfer? Do you have certain mechanism for that?
Absolutely. So we do have, for example, our entire customer facing team, right, is constantly telling, especially teams like marketing, product that interact a lot with customers. They are constantly, any communication usually, is something that is sort of, hey guys, this is the communication that's going to go out to customers, go or no go, right? So they are a stakeholder for sure. That's how we sort of ensure that, whatever you're communicating is like done in the right fashion. It's not unexpected. The language is also, sort of tailored to that market.
Yeah.
And even in terms of not just the language, but also like I said, right, they're sort of the bridge between the market and us. We spend a lot of time just speaking to the success team. Like I have like equal number of syncs with my US facing team than I do with my engineering team back home.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah.
So tell me, how does your day look like? I mean, how do you ensure that you have good collaboration with your Indian team as well as your US counterparts? So do you have like late calls every night, or how does it? Because I've been there, I understand what does it take to be in a global team, and how do you manage your day? So
yeah, I think one of the great things is that people talk a lot about work-life balance.
yeah,
I think now we live in an era of work-life integration, right? So how do if you're building a global product, you have a global team, you have to figure out
Yes.
how your work and life sort of integrate. It doesn't have to be a bad thing at all. work doesn't have to be boring at all. You know what WeWork says, do what you love.
Yes.
Right? So if you are at a stage, which I'm fortunate to be, is that, work doesn't feel like work. Work just feels like life and a part of life, right? It's not like, oh, work is separate and my life is separate.
Yeah.
That's not how it is. We do have the flexibility, even at SignEasy, to, just basically structure your day as you like it. We don't have any set hours. We do say, like 3-4 hours, let's try and make sure that all of us are in the office together.
Correct.
Apart from that, you figure out your day. As long as you're hitting your goals, nobody's going to ask you how many hours are you working every day or anything of that sort. Because it's important, because like you said, we do have a US facing team, and we are kind of structured where even it's not that just the product managers are speaking to the customer facing team, even the engineers, every designer speaks to the customer facing team as well.
Okay.
So it's not just a one, like two people talking to each other, and we are not sort of the node.
So what are these opportunity areas for engineers to be speaking? So are they on the customer support calls, or are there other mechanisms how an engineer can also understand how is customers' life and what are their challenges?
Yeah, so it's not specifically customer support calls, so they don't really get pulled into that. But we do have a process of something called a customer support escalation, right?
Okay, yeah.
So whenever anything, right? There are support tickets coming in, the support team needs like the engineers involvement, they need some sort of debugging that needs to happen, and engineers need to come in. So we built this process where we have these syncs every day. With the customer support team.
Nice.
And one of the lead engineers. We'll have the mobile engineer, we'll have the front end engineer, right? And they are sort of hearing directly from the customer. They are the ones going through the tickets and figuring out, okay, this is the issue, why is this happening, and sort of taking that ownership of fixing that issue for the customer. So it is a built-in part of the day of an engineer's life.
Amazing. It has been a pleasure talking about all the journey so far of SignEasy. I'd like to talk a little bit about what I read about SignEasy on the social media. So your CEO Sunil Patro, he put an article that how he went on a road trip across America to know more about the customers. I think nothing beats customer obsession, right? You need to do that to become a great product. So talk to me a little bit about that, and also tell how you being here are ensuring that you are always knowing what is happening with your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that is one of our core values as well. Focusing on the customer, we have about 7 values, and this is like probably the one that's talked about the most, and the one that everybody's obsessed is, I guess, a little bit of a negative term, but we like to say that we are completely
Amazon uses it a lot.
Yeah. When we were coming up the values, we like, should we call it customer obsession? Like, maybe not.
What do you call it? Customer
focus.
Focus.
Right?
Wonderful.
So it's a very critical part, because especially if you're building, like I said, you're building a product across the world for a customer base that you've never met, right? You need some sort of this constant focus, so that it's very easy to sort of, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
It's very easy to like sort of lose focus otherwise. So you have to be like very conscious about it. And you sort of have to build those processes in every day so that you are actively looking at customers, right? We rely very heavily as a product management team. We rely very, very heavily on our customer facing team, our sales team, people who are constantly interacting with customers, right? Sunil's intention when he did that road trip was the same, where it had been a while for him where he had actually went and actively met customers, right? And this customer focus comes from him. He's very, very deeply believes in that, right? So he's like, okay, let me just set aside a month of my schedule, and he like booked it, and he's like, I'm going, and he mapped it out completely, and he went, and we spoke to customers. He like had met them for lunch, saw them in the workplace, saw them using SignEasy, which is amazing for a founder, I think, to do.
Did he record all of that for the team to know and learn from?
A lot of things, yeah. So we have this entire document about his thoughts, his reflections, what people said.
Nice.
So yeah, all of that is recorded for everybody to read.
Wonderful. So how do you ensure that you are always knowing what your customers are feeling, going through do you see any changes from the time that you joined SignEasy to now? Has the customer segment evolved, or you have identified a new customer segment? So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I joined SignEasy about 5 years ago, we were primarily a mobile first company. We did not have a web product back then. Mm-hmm. All our customers came in from the mobile apps. And we were primarily a consumer company, right? We were a consumer app. Individuals all the professionals,
Yeah.
still consumers though, they would install the app, find us on the AppStore, the Google Play Store, install the app, use it to sign documents themselves and email it out. A very simple use case per se. 2015 is when we launched the web product.
Yeah.
And the reason we did that was we realized that a lot of small businesses, right, who, so for example, the founder of the company or the CXO would install SignEasy, find SignEasy, use it, and realize that, okay, this is kind of useful for my small company. So they would sort of want 2-3 licenses of it.
Sure.
Right? So we sort of started provisioning that. Unfortunately, Apple and Google don't have a direct way of provisioning team profiles.
Correct.
But we started provisioning that, and then we realized, okay, maybe there is something here. That's how we tested it. So for the longest time, we didn't really have a formal, team license plan.
Okay.
All
At
we
the
did,
back end, you just
we came up with coupon codes. We're like, okay, we'll set your account up. Here's a PayPal link, pay us. So there was like a lot of disconnect. It wasn't really a product tied together. That's how we sort of tested it. Saw a lot of traction. 2015 is when we launched the web product. Right? The web app launched, again, same traction. We kept seeing that a lot from businesses because businesses operate on desktop, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily on mobile. Saw a lot of traction from them, and over the next 2-3 years, we invested a lot in building workflows for businesses, right? So we evolved from just a simple use case where you sign your own documents and email them out to now, how do I send documents out to people?
Sure.
There could be 4 different people, 5 different people across the world. How do I create that workflow? How do I route it? How do I set expirations? How do I send reminders to those people? How do I, if you think about the paper world, right? A lot of times when you're signing documents, you mark where every information needs to go, like those little crosses. Now, what is the digital form of that? How can I tell the signer, this is where you need to sign, this is the information, validation on the contract. So it became a really smart document workflow. And that's what it evolved into, right? And that's how our focus sort of became twofold. So one was on the B2C market, which is consumers, which was always our strength.
Yeah.
That very easily translated into SMB because SMBs operate like consumers,
Correct.
right? Because they don't need, they care a lot about user experience and about the ease of using a product because they don't have the time for onboarding, like for like a 1 week onboarding with like a sales rep from a company. They don't have the time for that. Right? They need a product that they can try out, tell everybody to start using and get going with their business.
Totally.
So that very easily translated for us, and that's how we focus now. We have an SMB focus and we have a B2C focus.
Glad that you brought out the point about user experience, us being F1 Studios. So want to understand that how has been your UX to product collaboration? Do you have an in-house team you work with, outside companies? How does that work? And as much as I know, probably you're looking for a design leader to join you at India office. Mm-hmm. So you want to talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I think like SignEasy, right? We very much pride ourselves in saying that we are the easiest and simplest e-signing solution. That is our core differentiator. We want that to be our core differentiator, is that you start using SignEasy, you should know how to get started with it and get going with it and get your documents out. It should not be hard. This is not something that's hard to do.
So it is essentially, it has to be a self-serve product. You ensure that there is no hand-holding. Obviously, you do not want it.
Yeah, exactly. So we try and minimize that as much as possible, right? This should not be something that feels unnatural. It should not be something that people have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out, how do I use this product? How do I get going? So that's how we operate. Simplicity is built into everything. We try to make sure that everything is built with ease of use. That's one of our core metrics also, I would say, that we measure our products with, right? How do you measure UX? I think one of the core things is simplicity and the ease of use and how the task success of the user, right? Like how quickly are they able to succeed at what they're trying to do. Having said that, the way we focus on design is primarily, our design team is in-house completely. We have from the beginning focused on design a lot. Sunil himself comes from a product background, so he himself is very design focused. So it comes, I guess, from its top down. It's very organized. The organization is sort of led that way. Since we have worked with Apple and Google a lot, Apple being the design guru company, we work with them very closely as well. I don't know, a lot of people probably don't know this, but Apple has the first accelerator that they opened outside the US was in India, in Bangalore.
Oh wow!
So in Hebbal they have an Apple accelerator where Apple employees sit. It's an Apple office.
And they get these new startups to come and work with them.
They work with app developers to, like, for anything. You need any advice, they'll work with you. Design feedback, developer feedback, anything at all.
I think that's a very good resource that you have mentioned to the audience. So just want to understand that anyone can apply to that, a single app developer, or is there like a very strict process and many people might feel that no, maybe they're not ready for it. So how is the selection process?
So we were sort of invited into it just because we had a relationship with Apple even before the accelerator started. It's only about, I think, 1.5 years old.
Okay.
Not more than that. But it's very open. Like, I have seen indie developers, I have seen single developers, I've seen like companies.
Were you sitting
like
out of that office? Did you visit Apple Accelerator while this was going on?
So I visited them quite often because they keep having workshops. Like, for example, when iOS 13 launches, they'll have like a series of workshops to talk about whatever was announced at Apple, right? They'll talk about all the new things coming up, the new APIs, how to use them, so just to get developers started. And this is before iOS even like publicly launches. They'll have all of these resources.
Correct. Right? They want to, live from the stage, they want to launch certain applications which have done a fairly good job on the new OS.
Right? Absolutely, exactly. So that's a very great resource, and I would encourage everybody to check it out on their website. They have their entire schedule there as well. I think anybody can register. I don't think there's a real formal selection process. And it's just about relationship building at the end of the day.
And how does it work with the Google? Because it may be very important for app businesses to know that it's the best distribution that you can get if you're featured on Apple and Google. So how does Google process work? And can you also talk about any specific nuances? Have you written a blog about it? How to get featured on Apple and Google or anything like that?
So I haven't specifically written about how to get featured, but I have written about the impact of a feature, which is tremendous. So if you are betting heavily on your mobile apps, and if you're a mobile app business, getting featured is the number one way that you can spike every single number of yours.
Wow.
It's a brilliant distribution channel and acquisition channel, and I would definitely invest in that. Having said that, there's no formula, right? It's a lot of relationship building. It's a lot of making sure that you're very focused on your product. Both Apple and Google, they only put out the best products on their, the front page of their stores. That's super important.
Great. Yes, with that, I'd like to also ask you that for user experience and product management people who are out there who want to be part of great product teams, build exceptional products, any one or two pieces of advice, and if you can point them to some great resources which would help them in advancing their careers to make better.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that just go out and be an avid learner, because that helped me a lot growing up in product management, because product management, like I said, we talked about initially, right? It's not, every company does it differently, right? There's not one way. You can't learn it in a B school. That's why there's no product management degrees, right? Every company does it differently. Every company calls it something different. Microsoft calls it program management, right? You could be technical, you could be design heavy. The need for the company could be very different. The idea is that you sit at the cusp of product and the business, right? Between the engineering, design, the product development, and the business aspect, you are sort of the interface and the translator, right? Resource-wise, there are plenty of resources. One that I really love is Marty Kagan. Okay. He's from the Silicon Valley product group. He wrote this book called Inspired, which is an amazing UX as well as a product resource. He has a newsletter, so I would definitely subscribe to that. Hiten Shah is one of my favorite product managers. He has a curated newsletter that he calls Product Habits.
Okay.
I believe he also had a podcast, which is equally good. Following him, he's one of my favorite resources, in terms of nuggets of advice. So these are a couple of things I follow. Books, I think they're amazing books. So my website actually has a list of all the books that I read, and the books I recommend. I would ask anybody to check that out.
Yeah, certainly. So could you just tell how people can connect with you
Yeah.
on LinkedIn? So they can search for Apoorva Tyagi, SignEasy.
Absolutely, yeah. Apoorva Tyagi, that's my name on Twitter, LinkedIn, even my website is apoorvatyagi.com.
Wonderful.
So you can just connect me across.
Thank you so much for your time, Apoorva. It has been pleasure knowing about the product management journey and the tips for other people who want to build exceptional products. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Thank you.